Hello and welcome to this episode of The Inner Estate with your host, Bridget Stewart, and our guest today, Ari Rastegar. Ari, thank you so much for being here today.
I love the name of the podcast.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I like it as well. Good thing since it's mine. What about it do you like in particular?
I just like that to me, this is an inner game, and I know you have a real estate background and,
Yes,
clearly in my day job, we build a bunch of stuff but I believe that business is so much a extension of us, especially as a founder, a CEO, an entrepreneur. And I think
that's right.
also, in our day jobs too. It wasn't that long ago I was flipping burgers at Johnny Rockets. And I thought how I dealt with my customers then was an extension of me.
That's right.
But
Yeah.
but this is I've come to find after being involved in billions and billions of dollars worth of deals and from flipping burgers to, you know, wherever we are now that this is a very much an inner game in every respect. And this is the estate, that I've been blessed
We've been
enough to
given.
have that I've been given. Yes. And I have a heart
Yeah.
that beats 100,000 times a day that I didn't have to do anything to get. So I feel very fortunate.
Well, it's funny that you picked up on that, and you're exactly right, because the cracks me up sometimes, and I'm sure you've run into this, where you'll talk to someone about leadership and they might say, I'm not in leadership. And in my mind, I don't say this to them, but in my mind, I'm like, yes, you are, because we all lead ourselves every day. We all
Amen.
decide when we wake
Correct.
up, what's the lens and the filter for the day.
That's right.
And are we going to choose to lead ourselves to follow whatever path we have chosen or fallen into by default, right?
Yep.
So we're all in leadership.
I'm with you.
It's,
Yeah,
yeah,
we're all in development, not to be too cheeky, right? Like we're developing
yeah,
ourselves and whatever that means. We're developing our bodies, our minds, our values, our businesses, our families. And so I think the real estate analogy can really be taken down the rabbit hole. Like if
right.
you play with like this is the foundation and this is the, like there's so
That's
many.
right. Yes.
This is
Yeah.
the inner estate. This is real estate. Like,
Yes.
there's so many ways we can, and I'm not surprised that I was an English major at undergrad, so I just read the best books in the world and being an attorney, as well as, it's about order, it's about, in an arguable civilized society, the laws are supposed to be representation of the needs at any given moment. And there's laws that we govern ourselves. There's laws that govern our relationships. Marriage is a contract, a purchase and
Right.
sale agreement. And all of these things come down to covenants, in some way, shape, or form. It could be covenants on one of our master plan developments or deed restrictions. And I think when we look at through that lens, through that order, through that, as you said, that leadership, that how we're developing, or, one thing that we do in real estate is around zoning and entitlements, and which is
Yes.
basically the use of what you can do on these pieces of land. And to think of it through that lens of like this use that I have in this world, I can change, I
Well,
can.
it's funny you mentioned, yeah, you can change, because it's one of the things that I wanted to discuss with you today, because you have made some changes in your entire approach to your career and just how you are as a professional. Because from what you were sharing, you used to really gauge your success and how you were doing at work against external measurable factors, but
Yes.
you've made a shift in that arena. Could you share with everyone what changes you've made there?
Yeah. I appreciate you saying that. Look, when you manage institutional capital, you manage money for high net worth people, there's certain metrics that you gauge the investment by. And there was a moment where, and we're very diligent, about how we look at those things, and the stopped equating my own net worth, so to speak, my identity with the business. Yes, we have all these metrics. We're very KPI driven. We're a technology enabled firm. We have very sharp pencils, for lack of a better.
Okay.
But before, so much of how I felt about myself was tied to the business, was tied to what happened in a meeting or what something happened here. Do we win a deal? Do we make money on a deal? Do we lose money on a deal? And I found myself being drawn into that ebb and flow. And there was a moment where I had to bifurcate, myself of just a regular guy, like trying to live a life, like this experience that is living with the business, although it's my baby and I have three beautiful kids. And there was a day that I had to send them all off to kindergarten. And,
Right.
sitting there sobbing in the car, like I realized that, it's got to go and live its own, it's got to go. And the business did that too. It was very much my baby. And I cared for her. I grew her. I and did everything that I could. That at one point she got her life of her own. Like she went on. I had to
Right.
let her go to school. And I had to say, okay, this came through me, but it's not mine. It has its
Mhm.
own beliefs, its own systems, its own values, its own teams, its own friends, its own. And that was a very liberating moment for me where I could also start to parent it, for lack of a better analogy, and with some great team members, great executives, great
Right.
partners, but let it start to do its own thing where I could start kind of having my own kind of life a little bit where I can share in the enjoyment of it. I can be a part of leading it, but not micromanaging it, not controlling it, setting a guideline, a direction, an objective, a core value, and letting the cookie crumble and letting great people be a fall, putting their own vision, their own realities, their own thought process, and in doing that as a team where it became me then we, and
Right.
that we, and we say in our in our large developments, we're putting unity back in community. And I know that sounds a
Oh,
little
nice.
corny,
I
but
like it.
that's what we're seeking to do, and this involves a big team of different minds, different perspectives, and that's where the beauty has come. But it was my liberation of not no longer equating myself as the business that I started to look at it a little bit differently. I would argue we have sharper pencils than we've ever had before because a lot of the people that are here. But with that said, it's just not the Ari show anymore. It's something much better, much more profound, much more interesting than I could ever be on my own.
Right, right. I would imagine that that is true, and when you were liberated, like, you made the changes within yourself, which liberated you,
That's right.
you actually also liberated everyone in the organization, because then it sounds like you allowed them to flourish or fail. You let them
You
fail
mean instead of
forward.
being a drill sergeant? You mean instead
Yes.
of just being a drill
Yeah.
sergeant?
Yes.
I'd like
Yeah.
to I
You
hope
know,
I hope that's true.
they might celebrate the anniversary of when they all
I'm sure that
realized that
I'm
happened.
sure I'm sure they do. Mean Ari is God.
Like, you're like, "Why
Mean,
is
angry,
everyone going
grumpy
to
Ari is
lunch
God.
today without me?" Yeah.
Yeah. Why is everybody
No, I
being so
think that
nice to me?
it's remarkable because you truly are allowing them to fail forward or flourish, and I'm sure you have greater retention, and I'm gonna
The
guess
business has
greater
grown
creativity.
the business has grown exponentially.
I think that's important for anyone to hear that might be listening to the 2 of us that is hanging on. Yeah, that's hanging on, like, with a tight fist of, "No, it's gotta be me. I've gotta do it. I have to have the final eyes. I have
It's
to."
like being a helicopter dad.
Yeah.
And I think the analogy is there when you're holding on so tight. That's not freedom.
No.
That's not liberty. Involves maybe setting the parameter, right? And setting the objective. And, something that I learned along this journey and a lot of this change, and you're right, change is the right word. I learned from Dr. Joe Dispenza. I don't know if you know who Dr. Joe is
I
or
do.
not, but
Mhm.
I love Dr. Joe so, so, so much. He's literally a national treasure. I'm going to an advanced seminar, 4-day advanced seminar in San Diego on Friday.
Oh, that's great.
I did several 7-day retreats with 3,000 people, and the
Mhm.
energy is quite literally electric.
Right.
But I thought about it. I've had several business coaches over the years, business and life coaches. I talk about it in my book a little bit, because you can't see the picture when you're in the frame, or at least I couldn't.
Right.
I'm sure people way smarter than me. Like I said, I'm a regular guy I don't have anything special about me. And so I needed great people to help me and guide me, whether they were in books or in YouTube videos or podcasts or friends or family. Life is definitely team sports, not tennis. Tennis isn't even
I
tennis,
agree.
honestly, with you look at all the people that help them watching Roger Federer. But if I learned this from Byron, is one of my coaches. He said, ask me to list all the things that make a great founder. So let's think about it. Grit, right?
Right.
Resilience, vision, tenacity, maybe like a decathlete of business, like you're good at like a little bit good at marketing and sales and finance and right.
Right.
So, you do it, you can do more, more, more. be able to survive on very little sleep and ramen noodles, which is also a superpower. So all that would make a
Yeah,
great founder, right? You would agree?
I would agree.
Every one of those traits makes a terrible CEO.
Agreed. Yes,
CEOs train people. They're patient. They have planning. They build systems and processes. They don't do more. They do less to achieve more themselves because they realize that delegation is where empowerment and scalability. I
that's
can
right.
only do so. Even if I don't sleep for 1 minute, I can only do so much. Even if I'm the best sales guy the world has ever seen, I can only take so many calls. So, in order, and this is the reason why so many founders have been ousted from their companies. And I don't think it has
Agreed.
anything to do with their just maybe they are, and I've, definitely worn that hat out myself. But my point is, it's because their fundamental makeup, the architecture of their being, unless changed radically at a core visceral level,
Yes,
is not congruent with becoming a CEO.
right.
That just the way it's made up. So, and you see, so usually what like Steve Jobs got ousted and then went to Pixar and worked with the great executives at Disney. It was like, oh, this is how a company is made. This is how a movie, this many people make this movie, and then came back and was able to lead. And quite frankly, Tim Cook, created more shareholder value by 100x than what Steve Jobs ever did.
Right.
And so, and my point in saying that is there's only been a few that have crossed over from founder to great CEO. Jeff Bezos, but knew when to step down as well. Bill Gates did it, but then Steve Ballmer took it to another level. There,
Mhm.
Zuckerberg, I think, has done it the best of anybody in modern history. But that's one in a million in the sense where
That's right.
there's a fundamental change that must happen at a permanent level that can't be faked. Bandage it, you can get along, but to really do it in a way that is um, really advantageous and truly authentic, you have to radically and systemically change your inner architecture.
And you have to desire to want that level of change because a lot of times founders are also proud and identify with
That's
all the
right.
traits that we listed. It's what they're excited about within themselves. So
Yep.
that is an interesting bridge to cross. So for you, was there a triggering incident? Was
Yeah.
there
A
something that
lot of them.
happened where you had that
Desperation,
realization of like, all
pain,
right,
pain,
pain?
suffering, enormous amounts, global pandemics, interest rate hikes, 500 basis points, divorce,
Mhm.
um, pain, and just at one point saying enough is enough.
Mhm.
Like, this isn't working,
Right.
this just isn't working. And do I want to be right or do I want the right answer? And
Right.
that was one of the questions I kept playing is like, do you really need to be right that much, bro? Like, do you need to be the smartest guy in the room? Or
Mhm.
do we want to build $1 trillion platform that can revolutionize global real estate? Like, really? And the answer to me became very, very clear that the strategies that got us to a place that many would argue is very successful,
Mhm.
very, but that wasn't the goal or the objective. And anybody that knows me, Bridget, knows I'm not a money worshiper. Like I've been rich, I've been poor. I'm gonna eat the same damn cheeseburger. Like it's not,
Right.
there's only so many things. Yes, so there's some nice luxuries that I enjoy with my hyperbaric chambers and going to go to
Mhm.
great seminars and a couple, sure. But when you're talking about the dollars that we're talking about, you can do that a billion fold and it doesn't. And so the mission became the thing that was the most important. As I said, it was a me to we. It was
Right.
me, 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 me. As this kid that wanted to from immigrant family, my dad's an Iranian immigrant. All the stuff
Mhm.
that we're seeing in the world now. I lived in the sense of just losing a country and having to come here and rebuild, and those stories and those traumas,
Right.
and wanting to be seen, wanting to build something, wanting to be rich, being poor and wanting to
Yeah.
be rich, admittedly,
Yeah.
there's no, and then all of a sudden evolving that model to say, okay, I wanted this and that's okay. But what do I want now? And okay, what do I want to do now? And okay, I did that. And what is this one? And just escalating and drawing back and unlearning old habits and working through those trauma loops. And one thing that really has worked for me profoundly is, in the middle of being triggered or being upset or sad or any lower base level emotion,
Right.
stopping and saying, why do I feel that way? Like having a meta cognitive moment of, why are you so mad, bro? During the
Right.
what hurt your feelings that time? Like what? And then just pattern interrupting it over and over and over and becoming so conscious of my unconscious thoughts that I couldn't stay the same anymore.
What did you do practically? How did
Meditation
you
work.
how
Absurd,
meditation? Okay.
absurd amount of meditation. So much that it would be unreasonable not to change. Like I started doing transcendental meditation. Ray Dalio
Mhm.
told me about it himself. I mean, I went and learned it because I mean, Ray's the best, arguably the best investor ever.
Mhm.
And I asked him what I should do as a young entrepreneur a decade or so ago, and he said, "Learn to meditate." That's what I wasn't expecting that answer, so I did,
Right.
and went down the rabbit hole. Did all the advanced techniques, became a siddha, and then evolved it, and started reading stuff about Dr. Joe. And when Breaking the Habit of Being You came out, and then Becoming Supernatural, and then I started attending
Mhm.
the events, and then I started to learn about the science of mysticism, what happens with heart rate variability, what happens with your brain. And then I went down the rabbit hole of nutraceuticals and readjusting my hormones and not eating junk and realizing so many things that I thought were emotional were physiological. And then cutting out any intoxicant, not drinking or smoking and
Right.
just clearing out the temple, like cleaning out the stuff and saying what's left, and that overhaul, that renovation over and over again, and keeping my eyes closed and observing the space around me. And over about a decade or so, started to change and I started to feel different. Personality. Like Joe says something that I love, said that if you want your personal reality to change, you have to change your personality. And that really, really resonated. And that's why I kept on stopping all these thoughts that it came of, what do I like? Why do I like this? Why do I not like this?
Right.
Why am I upset? Why? And I did it with all the base emotions, and I started to just excavate through it. But the meditation was the practice of physiologically calming my brain, calming my heart. And there's so much science now that when you physically calm those, and then I started to practice feeling the way I wanted to feel. I know it sounds super corny, but
I think it sounds great.
I would sit for hours, sometimes 30 minutes, sometimes hours, and then ask myself, what does it feel like to be happy? I don't know, like maybe like this. Okay, like this. And then what would it feel like to be joyous? What would it feel like to be excited? What would it feel like? And then practice these things. And I come to learn I had got really good at suffering and got
There you go.
really good at anger. I got really good at shame, really good at embarrassment, really good um, because I practiced them
Mhm.
for years, for
You
decades.
practiced and you adopted them, like,
And I
as
adopted them and they became hardwires. And now
what
I
you were
decided
wearing
to
every day.
pull out those circuits, install new ones. And so now I literally practice gratitude for at least 20, 30 minutes per day. I literally get in a set, I literally practice the emotion about nothing, like not about a
Right.
thing, about nothing. And then, and then I go about my day and I go about my stuff. And yeah,
So how old were you when you think you really started to see some change occur?
well, the
Or
first
how
big
many years
thing
ago
was
was
health.
that?
Well, a decade ago
Mhm.
is when I started to change my health, my physical health.
Okay. Your
Like
physical.
meaning that was the beginning of vitamins and doing it like a Ari investment manager, like getting my
Gotcha.
blood, circling
Right.
cholesterol, whatever, food sensitivity test, estrogen is too
Setting a
high, testosterone is
benchmark of
too low.
what you want to
Yeah,
achieve by
yeah,
Christmas.
yeah. And like eating, like being completely vegan for like 3 years with no cheat meals, and then
Mhm.
introducing junk food, and then trying fishes, and then and then testing my blood, and then going
Right.
through. And that was the beginning of this journey. And the meditation started about 10 years ago, and then
Okay.
haphazardly trying it. And but I would say this, we're talking about this granular level of emotional meditation, intentional work like this has been about a year. And so
Okay.
I can tell you in a year, this type of stuff can be so astronomically different. I mean, so the things I've seen people do in these seminars, the friends that I've seen change from health ailments, physiological, I mean, things that are so far beyond, like, that stretched my mind of what I thought was possible, that I had to create a whole new model of what was even possible because I saw it. Like, I saw it, I
Right.
experienced it, and it's made me very hopeful.
Hopeful is great. So
Have you?
I'm curious because when we decide as individuals to create that level of change in ourselves, it actually impacts everyone around us.
Yes,
And
it does.
usually, you and I have focused on some of the great outcomes, especially
Yes,
for
it
people
does.
in your work organization. Did you get any resistance? Because
A
sometimes the
profound
people
amount.
closest to us, they're like, wait a minute, I
I like
loved
the
the
old
old
you.
Ari. What? What's happening?
Yeah,
Why are you changing it? Did
there's a
you
lot of
have any losses along the way?
just about everybody, and the ones that didn't were the ones that also evolved in a way, like, I think about my best friend since 7th grade. We are very different people. He's the chief of staff of our firm, and we are literally night and day. If you look at our poll, our disc test, like, we're literally completely different personalities. I'm
Right.
very much, out there with boldness, and he's the peacemaker,
Mhm.
and why we've done so well. But, he learned to do all this meditation work with me, so in his own
Nice.
way, he came through his thing, and life is coming from you. And so
Mhm.
as that mirror changes, the whole thing changes. And that's a good thing. At the beginning, it creates a lot of, and I think this is the annoying part for a lot of people, and it was for me, is it creates a bunch of at the
Yes.
beginning, and a bunch of, it gets worse before it gets better, and things pop up, and people's this, and you get upset, and you go back and forth, and it takes some time for the new norm to kind of start to kick in. And I'm still in the middle of it. Like, I'm still on the river of change, if you know what I mean. Like, I'm
Mhm.
absolutely in it, in the business, seeing old messes that need to be cleaned up. I'm seeing it in personal relationships. I'm seeing it with my kids. I'm seeing it everywhere because this new guy, this is all new for him, and these
Right.
relationships are new. And I'm introducing myself like, hi, my name's Ari. Nice to meet you. And,
Okay.
my oldest daughter, who is, basically my whole heart, and she's
Mhm.
13 years old. Her name's Victoria. She's been kind of over the past 3, 4 months, 6 months, like, we'll be in the kitchen, and I get them on Thursdays and every other weekend, and, that kind of, divorce stuff. And,
Mhm.
she's kind of looking at me and, like, eating like a chip. This look, like, everything okay? She's like, yeah, you're kind of different. I was like, different,
There you go.
good or bad? She's like, no, 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 good, just different. And she goes, I tried to tell everybody, they don't believe me. Like, I was like, it's okay. I was like, but good different? She's like, oh yeah, 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 just different. It was just funny, kind of.
That's really
Like,
cool.
yeah, like, there's a scene in the show Scandal that I love so much. I don't know if you've seen the show Scandal, but Olivia
I
Pope
have
is like
not.
this legendary character. It doesn't matter. But there's a
Mhm.
scene where one of the characters in it, his name's Huck. He's like an ex-CIA guy, and they have this new girl that works in their office, and they're like these fixers. And he's staring at her and goes, "You're weird." She goes, "I am?" He goes, "Weird is good."
There you go.
And
Yes.
I was like, and I'm looking at myself like, Ari, you're weird, but weird is good.
Right. And
You're
isn't
weird,
that
You're
just the
weird, Bridget, too, by the way.
I am weird. That is true. Yes. I will agree with you on that, and so would anyone that you poll that knows
Weird
me.
is good.
Weird is good. I like it. In real estate, we call it unique.
Okay.
Actually, in real estate, you probably know this, but unique is one of those words that could mean anything.
Yeah.
Sometimes good, sometimes not. But I think that as how great that your daughter is picking up and perceiving and feeling that you are different.
Yeah, and I'm glad you said that because, again, our children they're little people,
Yeah.
and the same kind of thing, and they're stuck with us, if we're
Mhm.
parents that love our kids and they love, so they're there. And so I think as a father, this is also parenting.
Yeah.
Like, children don't do what you tell them. Children do what they see.
That's right.
And so this part of this has been parenting.
and
And
your
because to your point of like who you are and how you show up, your presence, there's only so many things I can say, but the subconscious cues, and we won't go down the rabbit hole of all the micro expressions and
right,
tonalities and things
right.
but it's all but your kids, and so much of this was parenting,
Yeah.
attempting to parent.
And what a great role model. It's an overused phrase. However, you're modeling for her that you're an adult and you can still integrate change in your life.
Yep.
And you can face disappointment, heartbreak, family
And she's seen it.
disruption, all of
And she's
these,
seen it.
and you can still choose how you're going to feel today.
You're right, and
And you
that was my hope. You said it beautifully, and that is my hope, that is my prayer, that is my highest wish for them. If there's anything that they can perceive from any of this, it's exactly that, because I know that to be true now. I know that from a
right.
neuroplasticity standpoint, I know that
Yes.
from a emotional stand I know the math now, if you know what I mean. Like, I know the
Right.
math, and I know the feeling, and
Mhm.
success and fulfillment are very different things, but I know the math now. And now that I know it, I'm a dog with a bone and I can see it.
That's right.
I know the work to do and I'm just getting warmed up. Like I'm just now getting warmed up. Like I'm just now starting to see all of it. And now it's time to start programming. Before it was just unmasking and finding and seeing and this haphazard exercise that was messy. And now I'm starting to go in as a coder, and rewrite in the
That's
programs
right.
that I want, excavate out the things that I don't. That's the beauty of this life is that it's a never, it's a practice for one, and it's a journey and it's a thing. But now I feel so confident the value that we can create, the things we can do for our investors, for our end users, the houses, the homes, the apartments, the data centers. We're going to do some cool stuff and we're going to do it at the highest levels imaginable. And my hope is that by bringing a little heart into the equation,
It's going to make all of it more meaningful.
like that's for sure.
Yeah.
And I believe it's gonna make it more profitable.
I believe it will as well.
And so
And there's even data that backs what you and I just said. One of my other guests was going into that just last week. But so just curious, said a few times you're still in development, you're now starting to code, you're in the river of growth, like all of that. So, and I believe you're also writing, right? So,
yeah,
attorney, you have
yeah,
your
yeah.
firm and your practice, and you're also
And my
writing.
book, my first book, The Gift of Failure,
Yes.
is out there. And the first line of the book is I hope you fail. I hope you fail a lot.
Yeah.
And I wrote a bunch of stuff of what I've learned thus far, effectively.
Mhm.
And I'm working on another one now. I'm working on some really cool stuff in the business. But like I said, work is in progress. Like I feel like I wear that sign around my neck. Work is under construction.
Under construction.
Yeah, under construction. So I think next time we talk and meet, and hopefully I get to reintroduce myself. My tailor, I'll leave you with something. I gotta go. But,
Mhm.
my tailor who passed away. He was a Holocaust survivor. He survived Auschwitz and he died at 96, I think, a couple years ago. His name is Martin
Right.
Greenfield, arguably the most famous tailor ever. Well, in America, he made every suit for every president since Eisenhower. Anyways, he said something that I really loved. He said it to me, but he's said it before in different instances, and that I kind of learned after reading his book and getting to know the kids. He said, as he was kind of measuring me in one of my suits or whatever, he goes, I'm the only reasonable person in your life. Okay. He goes, I'm the only one that measures you every time that I see you.
That's amazing. I like that. I am going to definitely dwell on that. Well, I wanna thank you for being here today. I would love to
Like,
have you back again.
I'd
And I'd
love to
love to
talk with
pick
you
up on
again.
some of this conversation because you you know how you said, "I'll leave you with one thought," that you were going to Joe's events and you were being inspired and confirming it was true and possible for you because you saw what it was
Yeah.
doing for others.
Yes.
And I just had a thought of who has been in those rooms that was observing you, and you have now inspired them that it's possible. So it is
Well,
something that I'll put links as well to more information about that, as well as if you want to reach out and connect with Ari, please do. Anywhere you're consuming this podcast, his information is in the description. Ari, thank you so much for being with us today.
Bridget, it's a pleasure.
All right, thank you. And if you're listening, please come back and join us on the next episode.